What's going on, guys? I wanted to tell you the story about the drunk motorcyclist with a gun. This actually happened to me tonight. I was on a Lyft ride. My passenger was in the truck. I'm driving down the road. I look over, and to my right on the sidewalk, there's a motorcycle laid down. The hazards are on, and there's a guy lying face down in the sidewalk, not moving at all. So I turned to my passenger and I was like, did you just see that guy? And it's funny how the human brain works under stress, and I really want to talk about it because my passenger goes, it looked like he was just looking under his bike. And I was like, no, that's not what's happening. I was like, do you mind if we stop and turn around and check on him to make sure he's okay? And she's like, okay. So turned around in the parking lot. I drove up next to him. I rolled down my passenger window. He's face down in the sidewalk, and I said, hey man, are you okay? He goes, yeah, I'm fine. He was lying in some sort of liquid. Immediately I got like a waft of urine smell. My passenger recognized it before I did. She goes, he's drunk. I pulled away from him and circled back around through the parking lot so I could get some more distance from him, but still keep an eye on him. Pulled up about 15 feet away from him, and I called 911. And so I explained the situation to the dispatcher. She said, all right, we got officers on the way. We had a few moments of silence. I'm just keeping an eye on him. He's wearing a black shirt, and then he's got one of those like motorcycle cuts or whatever you call them over the top of his shirt. So he's laying face down on the sidewalk. There's a couple other cars around. Everybody's looky-looing. So the guy's about 15 feet away from me in this direction. Another guy walks up along the sidewalk and checks on him, and in my mind I'm thinking, don't get close to him. You don't know if that guy has a gun. You don't know anything about this guy. You don't know if he is gonna hurt you. So this other guy goes over and checks on him, and then he starts walking over to my truck. We conversate a little bit. We're like, yeah, he's really drunk. And I was like, yeah, we just need to stay away from him. So I'm on the phone with the dispatcher, giving her the location and explaining to her the details of what's going on. He's laying in his own piss. The guy starts to stand up. So he gets into a squat. He's sitting there just in a squat. He finally stands up all the way, and he kind of reels backwards, and he does the whole drunk wobble thing, and he gets his bearings, and I see on his waistband that he's open carrying. So I say, okay, he's armed. The phone call to 911 is just going through my truck. So the dispatcher hears that. She's like, okay, does he have any bigger weapons, or is it just a handgun? And I said, it looks like it's like a little Glock 19. And she was like, okay, where is it located on his body? Because the officers will need to know that when they get there. If your waist was like a clock, I explained, okay, it's at his 4 o'clock. It's at his back right hip. And so she goes, okay, appreciate you telling me that. Let me know if he gets on the bike and tries to drive away. So he does try and climb up on the bike. As he's getting on the bike, another vehicle pulls up, like a little Nissan Rogue, little older Nissan Rogue pulls up. The people inside the car roll down the windows, and they're talking to the guy as he's getting on the bike. And, you know, he's drunk, he's armed. I turned to the dude that came over to my window because he's still hanging out there, and, you know, we're talking back and forth, giving the dispatcher a description. He's bald. He's about 6 foot, stockier build. She asks for a description of the bike. It's just like, it just looks like a Harley. And then I told the guy standing next to my truck, I was like, hey, wave those people on that are trying to talk to him, because if he gets agitated and he pulls that, I don't want him to pull that gun and hurt someone. So The guy's standing outside my truck and he kind of waves at the people like, hey, keep going, keep moving. We're sitting there and one officer comes up from this direction, and so he's coming up this way. The guy's like over here on the sidewalk. The officer pulls up behind him, turns his red and blue lights on, and then switches to his just white light, high beams. Gets out of the car, stands next to the driver's seat, hand on his holster. He's yelling at the guy, hey, come here, hey, come here. So it's just one officer. I'm sitting kind of catty corner, pointing at the dude, looking at the dude over here. Another officer comes up right next to me. They're in front and behind the guy. This guy hops out of his cruiser. They got their guns drawn, kind of like it low ready down here, one-handed, and a flashlight in his other hand. And this guy right here circles around behind the guy to the guy's right. He's sitting on the bike. So he's on his phone. He's so drunk that he doesn't even acknowledge the officers until they get within like 2 feet of him. And so they're able to come in from behind him and just reach over and disarm the guy immediately, because they gave him the location of the gun. So they sit him down on the side of the road, and I'm still on the line with the dispatcher, and the dispatcher is like, hey, do you want to hang out just in case the officers want to talk to you? I said, no, I'd really prefer to leave. She was like, okay, what's a good phone number for you that we can contact you just in case they do want to talk to you by phone? And so I gave him my number and drove away. I've had multiple situations like this where I've walked into situations that are potentially dangerous. I've never actually come up on somebody that has been like openly carrying and super intoxicated, and also trying to ride a giant motorcycle home. This was a really mixed bag, but I like to step in and help, because in stressful situations like this, there's really high potential that people get hurt. If you choose to carry a firearm, if you know you're going to be drinking, leave it at home. In Texas, it's a felony to be armed and intoxicated. Huge no-no for obvious reasons. When I'm on the phone with 911, I'm just trying to stay calm and relay accurate and relevant information about what's happening, and they will obviously help you with that. Knowing things like the direction that I'm heading, the cross streets, where we're at, are all really helpful things just to give the officers context before they show up. I've come up on drunk people passed out in the street before, and I had an instance where I came up on a guy who was passed out in his driveway, and I actually got out of my truck, walked up to the guy, and was calling out to him. I got to where I was actually like standing over him until the guy finally rolled over and acknowledged me. And it was a similar situation to this one. When I told that story to a friend of mine, he was like, you never want to approach someone who like you don't know. Like if you're in a situation like that and you see somebody that is lying in the street, for example, you never know what they're gonna do. Like if they're on drugs, if they're drunk, you never know if they're armed. And if you startle them and they turn over and just have a reflex action to, pull their gun and shoot you, like, you never want to put yourself in that situation. This time when I pulled up to this guy, I made sure to stay in the truck and just keep a good distance from him and just call out from within the truck. And then once I know that, like, okay, this guy's not dying, he's not in immediate danger, I'm gonna pull off and get to a safe distance and call 911. And then the other thing is just I made it a point to stay calm with the dispatcher. If you relay the incorrect facts to the dispatcher, they're going to relay incorrect facts to the officers, and you could potentially have a situation where the officers think they're rolling into what's going to be a shootout. And we all know how that ends. Even though my adrenaline is spiking when he stands up and I see that he's armed, I'm keeping my distance. I'm not trying to escalate the situation, yell out, "He's got a gun," or something crazy like that. Like, that's the last thing you want to do. I just stayed really calm with the dispatcher. I was like, okay, he is armed, he's open carrying. That's exactly how I said it, okay? In the political climate that we live in, you know, if you escalate a situation, there's a really high potential those officers are gonna roll up thinking that they're about to get shot at. And that's not the case. This guy didn't show any intention of hurting anyone, of pulling the gun. The dude's so drunk, I found him lying in a puddle of his own piss. So, like, if there's no threat, you don't need to act like there's a threat. Is it scary that people carry guns? Yeah. Is it cause to lose your shit and create a problem where there is no problem? Absolutely not. Like I said, this guy showed no intention of being aggressive, of hurting anyone. When I asked him how he was, his tone of voice was really docile. He was just like, yeah, I'm fine. It wasn't, yeah, leave me alone. F you, bro. Mind your own business. It was just, yeah, I'm fine. So, you want to give proper context to the officers that are going to be coming through. The brain does really weird stuff under stress, and it's important to understand that. So if you are ever in a stressful situation, you can be a help to people. You can do good instead of harm. Coming up on a drunk guy with a gun, that situation could have ended far, far worse than it actually did. It's so important to maintain calm, maintain a level head, communicate accurate information and in an accurate tone for the context of what is happening. Like, I wasn't panicking, and luckily the officers were able to disarm this guy without hurting anyone. So, best outcome for a drunk guy with a Glock 19 and a motorcycle. Please be safe out there. If you're ever in a stressful situation, do your best to maintain calm and present an accurate picture of what's actually going on, because at the end of the day, everyone wants to go home safe. I want police to go home safe. I don't want people dying. I don't want innocent people dying. I don't want anybody to die. All right, we live in a violent world, and there are a lot of tragedies that occur. I personally want to do my best to come to the best possible outcome for situations like these. And unfortunately, that guy is most likely going to get a felony for carrying a gun while being intoxicated, and also operating a vehicle while under the influence. But he didn't kill anyone, and those officers didn't have to take a life. So, wild night, but a boring outcome, a boring end to this story is, it just makes my heart so happy. You know, that guy made his decision to carry a gun and go out to drink, and that was a bad decision. and he's going to face the consequences of that. But he gets to live, and that makes me so happy. And those officers get to live, and we don't have another horrible news story. We don't have another horrible headline. We got a spider in my truck. Good night, be safe.